Everyone, welcome to another exciting edition of Words, Images, and Worlds. On this episode, I am delighted to be having what I believe might be called a trifecta episode. I think this is our third chat. Delighted to be talking with author Eric Hanson or EC Hanson. Which of those would you prefer that people locate you by?
The second would be better.
Yep. All
Yep.
right. All right. EC Hanson it is. So we have Dead End Road that we are discussing on this episode, the most recent. And I have to say, you shared a copy with me, and thank you for that. I'm very familiar with the Western EC Hanson, the horror EC Hanson. So this is a different take, which I really appreciate because I read widely, and I love it when authors write widely as well.
Well, yeah, I kind of hinted it in the book. You talk about your obsession with true crime stuff, and then when you come to realize here was a case that my own former stepfather worked on, so it just kind of became a natural progression. So there was part of me, Jason, that was like, can I do this? But then it
Yeah.
also in kind of researching and everything, it kind of came into this like, oh, this is probably going to be like a hybrid true crime slash memoir. I'm processing it, and then when the reader gets it, they'll be processing it as I do. So it's like we're all involved in that experience. Well, hopefully, could if 10 people read it, 10 people are involved in that process, but you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. I am, of course, curious about the process. Before we get there, anything that you'd like to, without giving anything away, anything you'd like to give listeners about the backstory so that they kind of know what the inspiration was.
Well, the heartbreaking, aspect, I'm always so like reluctant to talk about true crime stuff because it's just like you could turn in every town and there's one of these, unfortunately. But
Mhm.
in 1977, the day before her last day of third grade, a girl went out to play. Her name's Renee. Um, Mom went to the store to purchase some, baking stuff to make for the last day of school. And when the mom came home, typical thing, calling out in the neighborhood, Renee's not coming back. Renee's not coming back. And then after a few hours, I want to say timetable, from when she went out around 6, a little after 6, they found her a little after 10, you know, and unfortunately, obviously bludgeoned to death with a rock. And so you have that. You have it's from my hometown. You have my former stepfather worked on it and I didn't know about it. But the other thing that was the big hook, man, the big hook was I'd start talking to friends. Like I was born a year after this crime, but we were all running around the neighborhoods, my best friend and I were raised by single parents, and we're like, we had so much freedom and we never
Mhm.
heard about this crime. So we were like, there was that aspect of like, why wasn't this a cautionary tale? Now we still would have been playing all the wild games outside, but there maybe you'd have a little bit more of a, okay, wait a minute, it's getting dark, or I heard that's a creepy neighborhood, or whatever it is. And it was like the crime shocked and silenced the town.
Mhm. Mhm. It's uh, just wild that those things happen and wild to sort of process it and especially to process it, in the rearview mirror in this way too.
Yeah, and the toughest thing about these is like you go through this process. This is the one thing, Jason, you reference like horror and Western, like
Hmm.
no one's yelling at you to stop doing that. Some people could hate your material, your finished product. But
Yeah.
this is interesting because, early on, it's I don't want to talk to you about this. I don't support this. And you're kind of like, wow, you don't even have a connection to the crime, but you don't support it.
Huh.
You'd have that camp, then you'd have people who are come out of the woodworks who knew the girl, who are like fully supportive. So you just see all these different shades on the spectrum. Like I said, that I wasn't used to in, with the process of writing, and you just kind of have to go full steam ahead. The common goal is getting justice for this the girl's surviving family members, and you just go full steam ahead. And maybe this book will help as an exposure tool because nothing else was written about it.
Yeah. Yeah. What was it like? You had some resistance there, it sounds like, but what was it like digging into the research side of this and putting together the book itself that way?
You know, the hysterical, well, I won't say hysterical. Um, the irony is, I guess I'm not very good at watching crime shows because, no, in all seriousness, because I called up I submitted a FOIA request and it just got a kickback. And I just thought, I had a cop where I live tell me, oh, you'll have success getting all that information.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't. I get a kickback that says contact Monroe Police Department, which I do. And they're like, this is an active case. We can't tell you anything. So there's that
Mm,
emotional piece of, guys, this has been 47 years. How active could this be?
right.
Not that I'm bringing that, but plenty of people in the town who care about this too, and they don't understand that, Um, so just, I only had access to what was written about it. And the last article, Jason, was 1999. So it turned into one of those like, fortunately, there was a local reporter who had a sibling that knew her, and he ended up running his runs a small press in the town. So he helped get me like two or three articles that he shared with me that were
Mm,
not easily available. But he used to do a Google search, and two or three things came up, and then like the fourth thing was just a Reddit theory. That's
wow.
it. Yeah.
Yeah. Huh. As far as you mentioned, there was a family involvement here for you too. So, what was it like balancing and negotiating that as well?
Negotiating with who? I'm sorry.
Negotiating kind of your own family dynamic of it, of yeah, the involvement that you had.
Um, Well, from my former stepfather's standpoint, that was unique because I hadn't seen him in over 30 years.
Mm, hmm.
So then you're kind of like, "Well, man, I'm gonna reach out. I'm gonna reach out and one, see if he's still alive. Two, contact my ex stepsisters, which I had to find them. And then it turns into that whole process of then are you gonna get, support on
Hmm.
that? But, with talking to the old guard detectives, the common thing was like, can't tell you anything, but I want this one solved before I die. So it was like that. And then my former stepfather, I mean, he gets really emotional every time he talks about it. He visits our grave annually. It's that deep for him. And I just looked at it, not in any kind of arrogant way. I just looked at it like, okay, I could put something together. So if you go to an Amazon, you're going to go, oh, there's something about this. And really, all ego aside, I say this in like in the opening, like somebody needs to take that and then keep going, like do a podcast and then do something else and keep the attention going. And it's just about that because I just can't imagine this happening. I don't understand with DNA and it happened before social media, all that stuff, but I just can't imagine that many years goes by and it's been 25 years since there was even a little article about it.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
you're just like, there's like nothing out there. And so I just thought, okay, I could throw something out there. Um, and we had a Facebook group aligned with that, and we had a lot of members and people from the time. And like I said, there are some people from the time not supportive because they're like, you didn't grow up and you didn't live in our neighborhood, and there's all these different camps, which you kind of
Yeah.
have to support their way of thinking. Like I understand, but the immediate counter to is, I don't want to say the outsider, but you didn't grow up in our time. It's like, well, nobody wrote anything about this.
Hmm.
So if
Hmm.
you want if you want it solved, we all have to do our part. So if I'm considered the new, not from the time person, which I was only born a year later after the crime. It's just like, well, this is how I can contribute something.
Yeah. Yeah. Any inspiration points as far as putting the story together? Because I'm thinking about like Anne Rule, Truman Capote, In Cold Blood, some of those kind of things. Did you have some mentor texts that you were looking at?
Um, you know what? I really didn't. And that's not, I think when I went to NYU, I came across somebody who I actually did admire them as a professor, but they were like, steal everything.
Right,
It's
right.
it's okay and blah blah. Blah. And I always thought that was so like I like I've gone through some of my own work and go, oh my God, I watched Unforgiven and I think I took like
Hmm.
subconsciously maybe took had a character quirk that's very similar that it makes me like want to cry in the corner.
Hmm.
Um, in terms of this, Jason, I have to say I was getting to work early and just writing like a frantic like stream of consciousness type of thing. I didn't have like a I didn't want it to have like I said, I say I didn't want to rely on a mentor text or be like, I'm trying to write the next blah blah blah. You know what I mean? Because I just
Hmm.
knew once I started going, I knew I'd bring up a childhood experience I had where I almost killed my best friend. And what would I have done? It's so easy to be like, this person's evil, this person's that. It's like, if it's been unsolved, we don't know the full scenario.
Yeah.
So it's benefit of the doubt. I don't necessarily think that's how how it went down, similar to a situation I was in. But I think it's as a writer or somebody of my age, you have to ask those questions. Okay, you're in that situation. Were you just a bored juvenile who said, "Okay, I'm just going to do this because I'm bored and I want to see what it's like," or did something get out of hand? You did it, and your reaction, like anybody breaking something, hurting something, is to hide, and then it
Hmm.
snowballs, and then people are helping, your family helps you cover it up, and you know, I think there's so many emotional and psychological levels to something like this. And the saddest part, I mean, I kind of hint at it in the book is, I mean, it's easy for anybody to say, but easy for me to say is like, you could have just, you could have just turned your kid in and they would have done 2, 3 years in juvie and it would have been all over. Now it's
Hmm.
50 years of lying, hiding, you know, people in your family lying this and that. And it's like, here comes all this attention, not just because of my book, but because of Facebook group and Connecticut, the news stations are writing about it. It's like, I don't know that's going to lead to any kind of victory, but at the same time, I will tell you this. I don't think the killer thought when you have a real tiny article written in 99 and nothing since. I would think this is a type of attention they've never seen before surrounding that crime.
Yeah. 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 And I imagine that going through the process of writing this has emotions, anything that you did to kind of balance yourself that way as well.
Um, it's odd I hinted at the book. This doesn't make me special or anything like that. And I don't like to hide from my past or my upbringing or anything like that. It's like I am who I am and I am who I came from. It's like my father did time. Do you know what I mean? So
Mhm.
I was able to kind of not get caught in a like, look, I had days, don't get me wrong, I had days where you're like, wait a minute, police have a person of interest, and you do your research and you kind of go, I think I know who it is and all that stuff. That's like, yeah, you have a side to you. It's like, let's go and contact that person's workplace. Let's do this. And you're like, well, I don't really want to get sued and this and that. Like, there's just I had to kind of temper the emotion of just focusing on what the job was, which is exposure tool to help the fact that the case is active.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
just to attempt, I'm not the most social person, but like when I had my friend runs the Facebook group and he helped with like research and he'd read some things, we'd talk it out and whatever. And even if I didn't put a lot of things in my book that he said, we just argue and debate about the case and things that happened. But it would just always kind of come back to, if you hit Google now, Google this Renee Freer, you're going to find a lot of things now.
Mhm.
And if nothing else, if anybody reads the book and goes, it's garbage, it's not, it's like more true crime slash memoir, and I hate the style and this and that. Like I'm not even, I'm not kidding about it. It's not the point. It's just that there's something that exists as true crime fans that anybody can go, oh, wait a minute.
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
I grew up 15 minutes away. I never heard about that because I'll get those messages occasionally.
Yeah.
I never heard about this one, or a student at criminal justice program, in Connecticut reach out. Wait, what is this one? Oh, I want to do a TikTok. And if it, stimulates that, but I just kind of had a job in my head of, because I could have easily got lost in the emotion of like, I want to solve this for my former stepfather.
Right, right.
Like it's not, I'm no sleuth. I read what I had access to, wrote from the heart, and was stream of consciousness, like I said, it with the processing vibe. And it's up to it's nothing earth shattering to say, but it really is up to the cops to solve it.
Hmm.
The only reason I'm optimistic is because in April 2024, person of interest statement, they revealed that to the press. And like, I don't know what has been said, but I do know like the Facebook group and the attention of the book has caused a few people to come forward that previously hadn't.
Mm.
So
Wow.
whether that's valuable, like, I mean, that's for the cops to decide. I don't know what was said, but we know it stimulated that, and that's worthwhile, if nothing else.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, certainly curious about where you're headed from here creatively, since you've done a departure here from what I've known you for. And also curious, I always like to give space to share where to find the book, where to find information about you and things like that as well.
No, I appreciate it. I mean, it's just you gotta like I too, I admire even like the filmmakers like George Stevens, where you're like, God, how did he make so many good films in different genres?
Hmm.
I'm no George Stevens, but I'm saying that attitude of I want to try this next. I'd rather try something and creatively and fail,
Yeah.
or somebody tell me a book of poetry and they go, that just sucks. That then, you can, it's not even about redoing the same thing, but, and I love Westerns, I like horror and all that, but you just, I get bored with myself creatively very easily.
Yeah. Yeah.
And when you wanna, it's less so about the results and more about the pushing yourself when you feel some type of like this caused it. So I don't know what'll be next. I don't know what'll be next. I just know, like I said, obviously the place is Amazon. If you wanna read it and trash the book on Goodreads, you can. It's all good. Even a bad rating is good attention, essentially. But yeah, and then on Instagram it's Haddonfield Hanson. So that's just Haddon Field Hanson. And if anybody wants to follow me, they're listening to this. If not, it's okay.
Well, well, anything that we've missed that you want to make sure to share about this project in particular before we close out?
Um, I would honestly say if you anywhere across the map, if anybody that listens to this and has you're into true crime or just has a friend that is, you could even reach out to me on one of those. I'd provide a free e-copy. Like I said, this is an unsolved case, and it's so strange when somebody on Facebook, oh, they live in Mississippi, but they were there at the time. It's like you don't know who people know. Do
Hmm.
you know what I mean? And I know that it sounds like a big like Hail Mary thing, but I've gotten some odd, like welcoming emails, but odd ones like how are they connected? And so, like I said, if anybody's curious, and like I said, had any financial difficulty, I could provide an ebook just to let them test it out and go from there. But two podcasts are coming down the way to focus on the case. So, you know, I tried to do my part. I know my friend with the Facebook group has done his part, and we're just hoping more people grab hands and try and get this in the end zone.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Well, I always appreciate the chance to talk with you. Looking forward to talking around the next project, whatever it happens to be, and glad to share about your work and wishing you well.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.